The powerful aurora has enveloped the entire globe. Due to issues with navigation, port authorities have reactivated the old lighthouse in Mouth to guide the way for ships at night. I was chosen to be its keeper. My job is to keep my lighthouse in good condition, repair anything if it's broken, and the most important, keep the light on at night, because it's too dark and dangerous to rely on your eyes during nighttime. To make things worse, the aurora makes it impossible to navigate by the stars, so here I am learning the ropes to be the savior of the day and night. I get my food for the next 2 days and a paycheck of $400 from the courier. My job requires me to work at night, which is already difficult, which means I'll try to make my workplace as comfortable as it can possibly be. At first I get a call through my radio from the mainland, Blackford. My boss tells me I have to start my first shift. Switching the lever, I get ready for duty. My boss calls me again to explain my responsibilities. The aurora messed everything up and fried electronics. The radio is no exception, it's acting up too. I have to pick up ship signals and direct their way. Any mistake will cost me and make my salary envelope lighter. One more thing I always need to keep in mind, since I work on the small island near the village, the locals are too curious sometimes, and some of them would like to stay inside my lighthouse for a change. So the thing is, it is not my lighthouse, but the local government's property. It's not my home and I should not feel like I'm at one. It's a place of work and I should take it professionally, especially in times like that. Long story short, I should not let anybody in, otherwise I'll be fined. Just before I am about to start my first shift, with shaky hands out of anxiety, I hear knocking on the door. It's a son of a local village chief, Jackie. He came to get to know a guy who'll be guiding him at night. He seems like a nice guy and he didn't come empty-handed. He brought the journal of the previous lighthouse keeper, so I might learn a few life hacks to be better and faster at my work. Or at least that's what I think. Instead he says something so awful happened to the previous keeper, this lighthouse was shut for a long time. Before he leaves, he begs me to stay in the lighthouse for a night to meet a sunrise before his voyage. He's been doing it since he was a kid, and even when the lighthouse was shut, he was sneaking in for that anyway. However, his tradition would fill my pay envelope with fine notices instead of cash. I tell him straight away I'll lose my job over this, and he threatens me with his father, who is an influential village elder. It's my job and I'm not ready to jeopardize it for this guy. I close the door and get to work. Heading to my table, I take a peek at the village from the window and see a few guys staring at the lighthouse. I guess Jackie already said how inhospitable I am. From the window behind, I have a view on the woods, and I notice a guy standing behind the trees, looking at me menacingly. Thanks to these local creeps, I get paid so much. On the other hand, it's reasonable. They wanna know who their next scapegoat is. Well, the most suspicious things of the night were that Captain Drake from the Coast Guard caught criminals who hijacked a yacht and packed it full with some new type of drug. Somebody in the port was helping them all along. Moreover, this yacht was carrying 2 other keepers who had to join me to change shifts, but their cold, breathless bodies were left to rot on the deck, meaning my wage is tripled. My glass is always half full. Then, cargo of another ship was glowing and shimmering all colors of the rainbow. Often between the calls I needed to be sure that the lights are on, even inside the cabin, because when it got dark, somebody scrawled with ketchup on the walls, which drove me insane. Accidentally, I intercepted a retarded nut job who was saying that the lighthouse lamp is sacred and it belongs to me alone. Duh. He also sent me his piece of art and insisted on quitting my job the next morning or else he will send me more of his ugly drawings and eventually the darkness will consume me. Ha! I get paid enough to be an art critic on the side. I didn't get what this crazy man wanted from me and heard knocking on the door. It was the creepy guy standing in the wood earlier. Turns out he's a fisherman who is kind enough to give me a fish to refresh. He just wanted to say hi to make sure I know that people rely on me. Such a nice guy. After a few more calls, it was 6 AM and I clocked out. Before shutting my eyes, I uncovered what happened to the previous keeper. His job started on May 15, 1859. He was the very first keeper of this place. Obsessed with the sea, he couldn't wait for the arrival of his wife Mary and children to this lighthouse to show them that weird beauty of nature. The next evening after I wake up, the fisherman shows up again to sell some goods. Seeing his prices, I barely keep my jaw in place. I mean, look at these costs. Having nothing else to spend my money on, I buy a fishing rod and a totem to keep my spirits high. And have a female figure inside, if you know what I mean. A Fox newspaper article arrives. It reads about a new drug infesting the streets of Blackford, amber, the same drug that was confiscated last night. Before I start my shift, I remember about my family and call them through the radio to exchange news. The wife says the city is running down. The roads are getting shut. More and more looters are breaking into stores. It feels like I'm a simple observer of all this mess. Getting everything cleaned and checked, I start my second night. Now I've got a new order to send all cargo ships to the Coast Guard station for an additional check. The elder of the village popped around to ask about his Jackie, who is still missing after his last voyage. Here is the thing, just before I opened the door, I saw Jackie's vision in the dark, but I guess it's too much isolation is playing jokes on me. After that I tell him I haven't seen Jackie since the last time, which is true, and he runs back to his village. Running by the back window I see a strange boy standing in the woods. Children these days. Then I get a call from Misty, Jackie's girlfriend, and a researcher from the science lab on an island nearby. She is worried about Jackie too, because you see, he sailed off to check out a mysterious island appeared on the maps. It was either emerged from the sea or somebody kept it hidden. Coincidentally, that's the island the new drug is coming from. On top of that, Misty found records of another disruptive aurora that happened almost 200 years ago, but the current one is 10 times more powerful. A few captains talked about spooky sights out there in the sea, and one of them was able to catch a dead body of a weird creature. Well, a second later, I get a call from my hater, who sends another drawing. This guy obviously needs a shrink, because he asks me to sink down a yacht where, according to his words, smugglers deliver amber to the mainland. I choose common sense over insanity and send this yacht for a checkup at the Coast Guard. The boy that was playing in the woods at night decided to pay me a visit and said about my eyes and somebody else looking through them. Then his nanny grabs him and takes him home. Well, nothing suspicious here. It was a lovely shift with no fines. I clock out and read the second page of the former keeper. On the 3rd of June, he was still waiting for his family to arrive in the following weeks. Villagers helped him to settle into the lighthouse. The village elder warned that life inside the lighthouse is difficult and dangerous, especially in winter, when there is almost no food left. Luckily, the keeper had his father's fortune, and his proficiency in trading made him convinced this place would be a paradise. Well, I don't know about him, but this is the paradise I've been looking for. So happy I am to be here. The next day, the courier comes to say hello and bring my food with the money. It's the same for $100, hence no rice for the two deceased keepers. Alas, they died for nothing. I saved up enough money to buy myself a music player to listen to bangers while sending people to their certain death. I mean to the bright future. The courier looks a little shaky. Makes sense. People are on edge thanks to looters, scarcity of food, and the monster that was brought to the city last night. Sadly, my boss blames me for following orders and bringing that creature to the city. But whatever. There is nobody else to replace me with. I'm the boss now. I go fishing and spend a few lovely minutes outside breathing fresh sea air. Working on my discipline, I repeat the same routine. While enjoying the view on the village, I see they've been sold the same green lamps by a salesman, because every one of them has the same green glow from the windows. On the other side, there are animals in the forest, staring straight into my soul. I lose the staring competition because somebody wants to see me before my next shift. This time it's the village elder again, who is in bits about his son, who is still missing. He asks me to call him if I get any info on his son. Well, I understand what he feels. I felt the same waiting for my paycheck the other day. It's time to work. This night I am given a command to deliver all strange findings to the research center. Oh man, were there a few peculiar anomalies. Everything started with the village. People gathered around singing something at night, when they were supposed to be asleep. The fisherman who passed by claimed locals are getting weirder by the day. Now they give him side eyes, like he owns them their children, before slamming doors in his face. Then sailors found huge glowing orbs, looking like pearls. But these ones never sink and glow glow from the inside. Another ship sent a picture of a moving horror that nearly took down 2 men. One more weird finding was fish with many glowing eyes all over their bodies, and they looked like they were already boiled. So dinner was ready at once. Somewhere in the middle of the night, Jackie calls me coming back from his trip. His whole crew is dead and he is badly injured, barely able to speak. That's when I face 2 choices. His father has been bugging me all night asking for any info on his son, distracting me from work, banging on my door a few times, and even standing in the woods giving me shivers. Now, when he heard that his son is calling me, he sneaked into my/government/soon-to-be-mine Lighthouse, begging me to send Jackie back to his home. However, Misty also asked to send Jackie to her, to provide medical help for him. She specifically insisted to avoid Jackie's father, who is standing nearby, by the way. The father instead blames Misty for all misfortunes due to her beliefs in conspiracy theories and wild speculations. I guess these guys share some history, but I couldn't care less. He's giving me goosebumps and diarrhea because he smells and looks like a bum, impersonating Santa who can't wait to have a private conversation on our own in a dark alley. Well, when this guy leaves the lighthouse, I sent his son to Misty. Because they're in love, she's sane, she can help him, and it's not healthy to live with your overprotective father in your 30s. The moment I send coordinates to Jackie, I hear my alarm setting off, which means the end of this wild shift. I deserve a breather. Before sleeping as usual, I opened the former keeper's journal. On 27 June 1859, he took a bribe for the first time and berated himself for that. More than a week passed since his family was supposed to arrive, but there were no updates from them. He sent a boatman after them as he was starting to lose his peace of mind. The fisherman comes to me again. It seems he's on edge, and I'm the only sane person who is somewhat friendly. He says villagers got more hostile. One old crazy lady came running out of her house holding a knife, yapping like a devil. He grabbed his sack and came straight to me. I know it's not allowed, but since it's unsafe, I offer him shelter inside the lighthouse. He refuses. Apparently it hasn't crossed his mind. Since I ran out of money the other night, I say goodbye. From the window overlooking the woods, I see that crazy old hack standing there, waiting, staring. Before the shift, I put up a few pictures around the place, remove spider webs, and bring some snacks into my room. When the night settles, I see something with a glowing eye. The strange groans it makes give me a hint. That's a new way of asking for donations for medical treatment for people in need, and I'm not buying it. Whereas on the other side, that boy in a yellow raincoat is looking at me. Look at that. Take away their gadgets and TikTok, and the only game they know is staring at people in the dead of night and drawing with ketchup in lighthouses. Back in my times when I was a child, we used to rob adults. Then the village elder threatens me to stay out of his way, and next time do as he says or else. Yeah, sure, what can he do? Send me more fine notices. I'll be grateful. I'll have some paper to chew on. In fact, he's gathered the villagers. I can only guess what he is up to. On the radio, I get the signal from Captain Drake. He managed to catch the port superintendent red-handed when he oversaw delivery of the drug. Now, Captain Drake wants to arrest traffickers on the island and shut down this criminal operation. I get more and more reports of ominous anomalies. The statue of a deformed man as an example, or the crab fisherman caught. It had eyes on its claws and it sang some dead language at night. People disappearing in fog and then coming back at nightmares, all red and wet. Then this fish child with black eyes and gills. Also, I guess that Aurora plays tricks on me with all these captains. Does it look like Natalie to you? My jealous fan calls me again and says I shouldn't have left my family on the shore. My boss visited my wife this morning to comfort her, provide her support. Well, I don't see the problem. I think that's actually good. Whoa. He offers his help to get rid of my boss and make him disappear in the sea. I declined his offer, because who else would send me fines? I need something to wipe up. It feels like he read my mind and sent me another of his drawings. Well, I'd give it a C this time. It lacks colors and precision. He needs to try harder. As the cherry on top, fisherman runs back banging on my door. He's afraid of fishing at night, because that old hack was standing behind him again with something in her hands, grinning like a psycho. He immediately packed his stuff and came here. At first, he's ready to meet his fate, whatever it's going to be, after a night stay in my place. Yet I insist he stays inside for as long as he wants. I feel like if I let him go, something terrible might happen. And the next moment I feel piercing sensation in my mind, like something someone placed images of a parallel future inside it. I saw the fisherman hanged. I don't want to let it happen, nor something even worse, like no free fish once in a while. So he stays with me. Full stop. Then, when I'm getting back to work, I hear another guest behind my door. He's topless and wonder why I don't have a peephole on the door. At first glance, he looks fine, but giving it a second thought and taking into account his rather odd questions, I guess... No, he's not a human.
Say that again?
And that's when the shift finishes. Another page of the journal is right before my eyes. The 7th of July, 1859. There was no sign of the boatman and his family. During the day, the keeper suffered from insomnia and nightmares. Because of that, he fell asleep in the middle of his shift. The following morning, the sea washed ashore a sailor's body. His ship had smashed against the rocks, and they buried him by the old chapel. In his pocket, the keeper found a copper medallion. He believed it was a talisman for good luck. I mean, did he see where that sailor ended up? The villagers told him to take it. Trophies from wrecked ships belong to anybody who finds them first. But the keeper couldn't help blaming himself for negligence. The courier arrived on the island to deliver me food and food. He is in a hurry to leave before the storm hits the area. It's going to be a huge one, based on the data I had received yesterday. Another reason he's in a rush is the villagers. They're snarling, groaning. They lock themselves in, shutters closed, but he says he feels them watching his every step through cracks. Nah, he's too paranoid. I remember them singing at night. They just started a new gothic death metal band. It's just less awkward to keep practicing behind shut doors. When the shift starts, I get a newspaper about new scientific research that people keep disappearing when it's dark. So it's highly advised to keep the lights on at all times. Well, obviously, if you turn off the lights, people disappear, because you can't see them. Turn the lights on and people will reappear. The same happens when you blink. Can you imagine that? Where is my PhD? The storm has come, and so have I. Since tonight I'll get extra bonuses to compensate crazy inflation taking place around the country. The first call I receive is from my retarded artist. He sends me a drawing of, something too gross. He gets an F this time. I'll make use of that in bed though. He offers me a deal. I sacrifice 3 ships to him and he stops the storm, so nobody else dies tonight. As long as I am getting bonuses, I am the best lighthouse keeper. Sailors can count on me. The second call I get is from the courier. He is lost in the storm. Since he has no family, no friends, and nobody who will cry over him, he has no will to fight anymore. And the world is going mad. I don't let him to give up like that. I convince him to send me the form to make a way to the lighthouse shore. Even though my hater needs 3 sacrifices, nobody is dying tonight. Doing my job well requires me to keep lights inside the building on, because termites are so huge on this island they come out from the floor in the dark. Local mafia boss, Don Duali, needs me to send their yacht with Amber to Blackford for an extra pay. Angry hater asks me for another sacrifice. I shot them both to get back to work. In fact, it's Captain Drake captured the trafficker's yacht. He comes back from the island he's been investigating. The drug, Amber, is not chemical, it's something organic, and my gut feeling tells me I need to guide him to the Coast Guard, and I do. The hater gets extremely angry and does something to me. I step out of the table to turn on lights in the guest room, and everything goes dark. I'm seeing a nightmare. I find myself in a dark world surrounded by tentacles, and this dark figure is standing before me. He's wondering if I want to figure out what happened to my family and if I want to save them. I'm sure he's playing on my fears, and I tell him to back off. He opens the door and I pick the second journal of the old keeper. This time it's decorated with a copper medallion on the cover. After such a tiresome vision, I get back to my bed and read the journal I somehow can hold in my hands. The 12th of July, 1859. He started a new diary. He couldn't write or draw anything and tore out most of the pages left. There was no trace or message from his family ever since they set sail. He couldn't sit inside the lighthouse anymore. He was restless and his thoughts were a mess. The only thing that lifted his spirits was the sea charm. He had a few friends left in Blackford, and he decided to write them a message in an attempt to learn about his family. I'm not surprised he was getting paranoid and restless. It's unbearable to sit inside the lighthouse alone, being awake mostly at night and having hardly any human interaction. The storm is over, and nobody died last night. It was a good night. Before the shift, I sniff around the lighthouse and locate 3 weird cubes. I recall that I saw 3 slots over the fireplace that looked like squares. When I inserted them, the music box appeared from a hidden compartment. There was a letter with some gibberish in it, but also there were numbers 159-0. I rush to the table to locate this frequency on the radio. On the other end, I hear a woman sobbing and breathing softly. She's surprised I could call her at all. Her name is Eleanor, the same Eleanor who is Elder's wife, who is dead. Somehow, radio reception in the afterlife is much better than in real life, and I can speak to her clearly. However, she doesn't know where she is, if she's alive, or what is going on. One thing she's sure about is that I should stay away from the basement, which is dangerous, which I've never seen before anywhere inside. I turn every dust particle but see no basement. I have no time to waste any longer and get back to work. On the radio, I get the latest news that Captain Drake returned, but he is screaming in anger, and that Amber grows out of his body. Due to unreal physical strength Amber gives, the captain broke free and ran off. More and more zealots and people who worship something underwater trying to sneak into Blackford, to the mainland, and my job is to redirect them to the Coast Guard. But that's not all the bad news. I get the emergency signal from Misty. She asks for the direction to Blackford too, because the village elder took 3 boats, loaded them with mutants in cloaks, and started destroying the research center. I, sure thing, helped the couple to flee for Blackford from Jackie's insane dad, who drove his wife crazy and let his first son die. It proceeds to get worse. My lighthouse is surrounded by people in cloaks, both from the village and the woods. According to news, people noticed these hooded zealots all over the country. Seeing the problem, the government responded to this threat and sent military aircrafts and military aid. Being overwhelmed and letting slip a few cultists into the city, I fall in bed exhausted. Before falling asleep, I couldn't forget about the second journal I kept reading. July 20, 1859. The old keeper found his family. They never left the city. They left the keeper instead and moved to the mayor of Blackford, Feroz. The keeper felt cheated on, betrayed. He couldn't figure out what made him such a bad husband and father. He cried out in anger all night long, until suddenly the whole lighthouse changed. The whole world seemed to turn upside down. The medallion was glowing, and he could hear his wife's voice. She was nearby. It lasted only a few seconds before he was back inside the lighthouse. Well, great read. Good night. In my dream, I see that strange boy in a yellow raincoat. He warns me that the island is about to wake up. I need to be careful, whatever it means. After I wake up, I see the courier safe and sound. He made it out of the storm alive. He confesses about his wasted life opportunities, that before death he had nobody to even say goodbye to. For so long he's been alone. I buy a few things and he leaves to his lonely home. Looking from the windows, I see nobody, except the ominous statue in the center of the village. Alright, it gets crazier by the hour. I call my family and they seem to be alright, though nervous because of military forces entering the city. When feeling calm about my family, I am ready to start the shift. The first call I get is about new instructions about military vessels. And then the call from my lovely sour face. He demands me to give the medallion to anybody inside the lighthouse to gain a piece of the great old one's power to save my family. Well, the last time I checked, they were fine, so I'll keep this medallion with me. The shift turned out to be quite a breather. A few intrusive zealots here and there, the villagers practicing their new growling-style song around the statue. Somewhere in the middle of the night, a dog scratched the door of my workplace. I felt he was a good boy and let him inside. He gave me a key to the basement. I wish I knew where it was. Then there was the village elder himself. He always gave me goosebumps, and now it got worse. He was saying straight nonsense. Something about the world which is wounded and him getting tired of living in a deformed reality. He asked me to give him the medallion to cure the world, to save Jackie and Blackford. But how about Misty? Said he knows how to speak to the sea. I refused to give him anything. Since he looks more and more hostile and unhinged, I shut the door right before his face. I'll call it a night. Another page of the journal revealed more about the old keeper's endless grief over his family. The 1st of August 1859. Touching the coin became his addiction. He couldn't get Mary's voice out of his head. He knew the coin was special. He only needed to understand how it worked. He asked the village elder about the voice and what he saw. The elder listened for a long time and brought him books from his old library. The books contained descriptions of various rituals and occult beliefs. The keeper was convinced there was no way back for him anymore. He needed his Mary and children back. The next day, the cultists brought several people to the statue. Is this some kind of rehearsal? Are they looking for a new band member? When the night fell, I saw the members who were auditioning for the band were lying dead on the ground next to the burning church. Damn, those death metal bands are sick for real. The hater calls again. This time, thank God, without drawings. He explains the medallion is used by the cultists for the rituals, so I must give it to someone inside the lighthouse ASAP. Well, no. The next moment I felt familiar strike inside my skull. A vision. I saw that if I'd given it to somebody, my lighthouse would have been turned into an evil wizard tower. The real shock was when I saw Captain Drake standing at the doorstep. Amber was literally growing from his body, and he was literally furious. He'd learned the truth. Amber comes from Morphin, an unknown leviathan the mob dredged up. Its guts split wide open while they obtain those glowing crystals. Its screams never end. When Captain Drake was captured, they overdosed him with amber. He got lucky to survive because the rest of his crew died in agony, looking like they went through a meat grinder. He begs me for the shelter inside the lighthouse, and I can't say no. I let him in for a night or until he loses his mind and decides to break my spine. Then I see the boy's nanny, though without a boy. She says she's been looking for him for all night. Weirdly enough, these two seem to magically stay away from all the trouble recent events bring. She says the boy has photophobia, an abnormal intolerance to light. He is awake most of the night and sleeps most of the day. His parents died in a shipwreck. If not for the nanny's spells and resuscitation techniques, the boy would follow suit. Now she looks after him when he walks away at night. I tell her I haven't seen him tonight, because she would think I'm a creep. If I told her I saw him in my dream, the lonely lighthouse keeper dreaming about boys is the police matter. So I keep shut. A few minutes later, I meet those notorious cultists, face to face, first time in my life. These shitheads preach about their old one's arrival. Well, I'll believe them when I see one. Until then, see you in a nut house. Between my calls, I get surprisingly too many visitors. The local priest from the burning church visits me next. He asks for the safe place and I let him in with no extra explanation needed. My shift ends with an intercepted call from a child who saw something standing in his room, in shadows, where the candlelight couldn't reach. It was faceless, motionless, and dark. Well, it's time to hug the bed. My favorite book before sleep is in front of my eyes as always. I hope the author will release another book, so breathtaking his stories are. The 9th of August 1859. The former keeper officially bought the lighthouse. The locals stopped sending him threatening letters and started to think he was a crazy hermit. I wonder what made them think so. Anyway, he finally saw the truth. So how corrupted they all are. With the right rituals, he was going to build a portal through reality. By using this diary as a focal point, he would succeed. The aim was as clear as day. Blackford must fall. The courier brings me, as he believes, my last paycheck and supplies. He wants to leave this crumbling state he never found his place in and buy a ticket to Europe, closer to his mother's grave. I doubt he'll be able to afford himself a ticket thanks to this crazy inflation, so I invite him to the lighthouse to stay with me, my dog, and a glowing unstable giant that can kill us all in a matter of seconds if I stop making him prostate massage. Well, in other words, come on in, courier! Yet the courier is smart and he refuses my offer. He'd rather live next to the grave in Europe than with villagers who forgot how to speak and run around on their all fours, growling instead. The corpses lying around the village disappeared, but the statue is painted in red, proving once again living with the courier is the right idea. My wife was a few steps ahead of me. She and the daughter are going to leave the city to her friend Nadine in the village, not far from Blackford. Cultists, thugs, mafia, soldiers are really driving everybody up the wall, and now evacuations were her last straw. She promises to call when they arrive to Nadine. There is nothing I can do but to worry and wish them luck. I finally gather my courage, remove the rug in the guest room and get down to the basement. It seems to be a library, and behind the broken shelf I see a drawing on the wall. It looks the same as in the journal. I can't interact with it, but looking through shelves a little longer, I find a picture of a family and a note containing hints about two crystals the first keeper hid around this place. The crystals that would supposedly activate the portal. I turned the place upside upside down, ruin my luxurious Italian wooden floors, and break a few fingers here and there, but find those damned crystals. When I insert them inside the wall, colossal, jaw-dropping, nothing happens, and I, being fooled, start the shift. Most of the night passes as usual. The villagers are having a bloody rave party around the statue cosplaying monsters, people around the world see dead people and disappear as if the earth swallowed them up, until I myself get scared shitless. Being stuck in a coal, I forgot about the lights in the room behind me, and a humongous termite gets out of the floor. It's got so fat that just looking at it makes me lose consciousness and black out for a few hours. Being offline, I saw what would have happened if I'd let the courier die in the sea when he was ready to give up. After a few days, he would return barely recognizable. The tentacles would grow out of his face, while his mouth would be producing popping sounds between words, as if he was slowly mutating into a fish. His stock would be updated with new goods, like glowing food and weird artifacts from the bottom of the sea. When I wake up in the pool of, I guess, rain leaking through the roof, the underrated artist calls me again. He says now is the time he gains his powers and his lighthouse back. I see that the lamp atop glows red and the whole lighthouse starts speaking some dead language. Running around in panic, I hear knocking on the door. I hope it's my salary to keep me sedated, but it's the yellow raincoat boy. He says that the hater gathered strength for 9 days to get back to our reality. It would have been faster if I'd given the medallion to somebody, but since I hadn't, I can seal this creepy guy inside the lighthouse. He gives me a drawing of the seal, which I need to draw on the glass of the lighthouse tower. I would give it a B, by the way, looks powerful. After I draw the seal, the light gets back to normal, and I feel that the dark entity has been sealed in the basement. Getting through so much stuff, I feel I need a rest. But before it, the journal. The 28th of August, 1859. The former lighthouse keeper figured out how to open the portal. He needed the energy from the aurora borealis that would appear in the following days. He had to find the source of the energy and transfer it to the basement to traverse the reality in no time. He said if he'd succeeded, it would have been his last entry in this journal, and seeing is the last page. I guess it worked. I'll have to check the basement when I wake up, just in case. Just before I'm about to go down the basement, a soldier interrupts me, banging on the front door. He speaks about the special military operation against the cultists and that I need to follow the orders from the military leadership. Gotcha! Bye! The basement air curdles around you. The first keeper, trembling like a junkie in withdrawal. He screams at me, promises to send 1000 crabs on my head, that I would never feel relieved after a sneeze, that every time I go to sleep I'll urgently need to take a leak. He can threaten me for all he wants. At least now, I wouldn't get distracted by his masterpieces and intrusive calls. There can be no mistake. He is the first lighthouse keeper who came up with all of this dark magic. Now, after reading about his life for so long, I can finally see who he is. Looking outside, I see soldiers occupying the place. They drove the cultists away, and I am not used to silence without agonizing screams at night. I get to the top of the lighthouse to fix the rotating mechanism and can't believe my eyes. The sea is boiling. There are monstrous tentacles rising from the water. I could explain metalheads, bloody concerts and cultists who I thought were cosplaying. But this time, it seems something is going very wrong. I hear the siren. Now it's getting serious. I hear the village outside is drowned with gunshots and screams. The military is holding mutants back, but for how long? Right before opening the door to another guest, I smell rotten fish and sea salt in the air. Is the village elder, and he looks fishy. He mutated into a creature from the aquarium I once had. He says the old one lifted all limitations for him. Now he can live forever under his boss's gaze. The reason he's chosen his new life is to bring new order to the world without death and suffering. He believes I owe him something, and he demands I send the military ships to their demise by any means possible. Nah, they pay me extra bonuses now, so I close the door. On the one hand, I locked my hater in the basement, while fish people are surrounding me for no good reason. On the other hand, I have the military with their nuclear weapons and the whole nuclear submarine I can capitalize on, so I'd stick with the soldiers. Then, in the middle of this madness, Misty and Jackie come looking for the safe haven. They are in trouble. The village elder is looking for them, while there is a war zone outside. I can't help but let them in. It's been a long time I've been helping them, and I got to be real stupid to let them down now. Outside, the war is going on for real. The military is losing positions, and they come to me to hand over the launch codes for torpedoes. I do as I'm told and witness how the huge creature underwater, along with the harbor occupied by cultists, are being blown up. After the fire show, the boy shows up again and asks me to follow him to find the third journal. I find myself inside my lighthouse, but it's different somehow. It's in ruins and in a bad shape. It seems I'm in another world where I find the third diary. The 28th of August, 1859. The keeper had prepared for the aurora very well. He focused a lens and several seals to focus the power into the lamp. It worked, and the lighthouse began to exist in several planes at once. It affected the aurora too. Vibrating, intensifying, the seals started to glow, and the keeper found himself on another side. He found an old room out there and a few sheets of paper to write on, to start another diary. He felt his truth was a few steps away, and soon he'd uncover it. The boy and his nanny decided it's finally time to stay inside the lighthouse. The locals can't stand them anymore. They worship the sea now. Anybody who doesn't join them is an enemy. Looking inside my lighthouse, you'll find the best collection of people I have gathered. I take money for looking at them like in a circus, but I have nothing to spend them on in this hell, so you can take a look at them for free. The dark hater speaks about the boy who can see him. He peeks his nose into the wrong places, while Misty and Jackie are trying to hide from the mutated father. She learned that the first lighthouse keeper collected all these books, and Jackie's mother, Eleanor, studied them all in an attempt to bring her first son to life. Now it's clear how the village elder can speak to the sea. He saw the books too. I guess there were at least two different auroras, because if the village elder witnessed the first one, that according to Misty happened almost a few hundred years ago, then he must be as old as the sea. In my headcanon, the first lighthouse keeper, Eleanor, and the elder village were around the time of the second aurora, not more than 30 years ago. Otherwise, the village elder is immortal. The soldier who I let inside last night is losing hope, because all his teammates are lying dead around that statue in the village. It seems the cultists are winning, and I chose the wrong side. Well, at least I'll go down with my freak show. Blackford is torn apart by soldiers, cultists, and gangsters who are trying to take over the city. Even the sky is painted in red. What's worse, my family is not responding, and I asked the local sheriff to look for them. Another police officer, who arrived a few days before, delivers news of her investigation. A long time ago, the previous lighthouse keeper stole the Necronomicon from the cultists, so they couldn't summon the old one, and the aurora couldn't reach its full power. The shift is nothing compared to the people I have to provide shelter for, so it passes in a blink of an eye. The next entry of the diary I read is about the parallel world the keeper found himself in. It resembles the lighthouse, but in the middle of the guest room there is a pedestal with a book on it. It has strange and recognizable symbols, but the more he looked at them, the more he began to understand. The book talks about the rituals, creatures, and forces that exist beyond our understanding and reality. He kept hearing Mary's whispering. She wanted him to stay there, in another world. She wanted to destroy Blackford once and for all. Now, looking back at everything that was happening, I'm convinced he had no Mary's voice inside his head. It's something else was speaking. It's easy to lose your mind to loneliness, crazy obsessions, and open yourself to something destructive. The next day, I can't stop looking at those villagers down the road. They hold onto the statue, praying to it. No surprise they believe in their god, it helped them to win the battle. Sadly, I see the same statue behind the lighthouse, and it gives me dizziness, but I have to keep working. I still worry about my family and ask the boy if he knows where they are. He tells me to stop being a crybaby and show patience. I'll meet them soon enough. At least this good boy is on the same page with me. Given that the world is going down, the shift is relatively trivial. Mafia bosses try to exploit Amber that gives immense powers to its users and fight the fanatics. The village elder is trying to get Amber from Mafia to use it against the military forces. The fish lover sheds light on the old keeper though. That guy sealed the power of the old one inside this lighthouse, and cultists need this fracture of power to summon their god, show other people true power and bring them to their side. Then they'll live happily ever after until the end of times, because they'll stay mortal forever to see their imminent downfall in the nothingness. I mean, because how would they reproduce? Finishing talking to him, I get a vision of the alternative reality, where if I'd sent Jackie to his father, he would have been dead and then resurrected by the power of the sea, which eventually will turn him into another ugly fish abomination. I pull myself together and take a look out of the front window. The statue opened its eyes that constantly follow me. Knowing that, I keep looking back while answering on the radio. Then I get a call from the sheriff, who was looking for my family. That was the reality check. He found the house where I said I used to live. He claims it's been abandoned. Nobody has lived there for more than 5 years. What's more, I haven't lived there for the same amount of time. I was renting the place near the port to be closer to work. None of my colleagues ever saw my family. I still can't believe him and demand to tell me where my family is. According to him, they died 5 years ago in a car crash. A drunk bastard veered into the opposite line and hit the wife's car. The collision was so hard, they flipped several times in the air, killing them before ambulance arrived. I wanted to forget it, erase from my memory and mindlessly pretend they were still alive. Maybe now, with the powers of the old one, I can make it come true. I need to sleep. I read another page of the journal. Date unknown. The keeper lost the count of time in the parallel reality. On the other side, he found the Necronomicon, a book the locals have been looking for centuries. A book that contains information about the old gods, parallel worlds, otherworldly powers that drive people mad, and forbidden spells that make dreams a reality. The old keeper didn't want to worship the old gods. He wanted to use it for his own twisted goals. The journal slams shut. Sleep comes like a black tide. In my dreams I see the car crash. Next to it, the people I once lost. They ask me, no, beg me to make peace with it and move forward to live my life. It's easier said than done. The 13th shift of this job brings nothing but stress. You know, the usual. Most villagers are disfigured and resemble fish, there are more and more statues behind the lighthouse, and military forces, which are losing their positions, were given a command to start using Amber to fight back. Captain Drake, seeing his opportunity to blend in with another disfigured soldiers and retaliate his kidnappers, leaves the lighthouse for good. Feels like even if he kills every last one of them, he'll finish his life pretty quickly. There is no point of living like that for him. There is no sun anymore, only crimson sky all the time. But work is work, it doesn't care about the color of the sky, it needs to keep cultists dead and soldiers victorious. As weird as it sounds, the cultists are trying to brainwash me to join their side, more than the priest does. He always sits inside the living room praying all the time. From city reports, I learned Don Duali and his men are being massacred by cultists who are also after Amber. The fanatics are already winning, but with Amber in their blood, I'm afraid to think what they're capable of. That's when the pastor speaks up. He's gathered his strength and made up his mind to go out, ready to face his punishment for his sins. There is nothing I can do but wish him the best. Then there is a finally silver lining in the darkness. The sheriff claims they've secured my village and eliminated most cultists. Now, with my help, the military forces have a chance to protect Blackford, which is the fanatics' next target. Looking out the window, I see sea monsters dying on the ground. Those who survived are hiding in the woods behind my lighthouse. They don't look friendly. I go to bed and read one of a few pages left. The former keeper came dangerously close to activating the lighthouse seals and concentrating energy through the portal to destroy Blackford. But the locals surrounded the lighthouse and severed the connection. He decided to hide Necronomicon in another dimension until they left. The soldier brings my supplies and money. Pointless currency in the apocalypse, by the way. What should I spend it on? Bottled depression? The food piles up on the floor. Every surface is already overflowing. Before I start my shift, the nanny calls for me. The boy is changing. He's been traversing realities and walking in shadows for way too long, and it brought its own toll. Nanny's magic was powered up by the lighthouse energy to keep the boy stable. But since the evil keeper cursed this place with his dark presence, it affected the boy too. We can only guess what happens to him now. Nanny and I have two options. choice. We provide more energy to the boy, so he stays in this world alive, but he can be transformed into another dark entity if he is too weak. Or we do nothing and he simply goes back to reality where he'd been to when he died. I choose the lesser evil, the Lighthouse energy, to help the boy to at least stay alive in any form. It takes a few minutes before he speaks to me. He managed to keep his human form and stay in this reality both. I guess walking for so long at night, fighting the dark presence, honed his powers. However, he says it was my good intentions that kept the evil Lighthouse keeper and his powers at bay. It weakened the darkness in this place, and he fought it back. He jumps into another reality, promising to keep an eye on us just in case. He reminds though, our goal is to find our purpose in this ever-changing world. That's good, another life saved, so I'm ready for my purpose. A few calls in, and Misty comes to me to deliver another piece of information she found on the Dark Keeper. Long time ago, the villagers managed to seal him inside the darkness. He's been there for God knows how long, but he knew another Aurora would take place, and he'd use the rift in realities it creates to come back. He only needed a few more human sacrifices to the Lighthouse to break free on his own, then take the book and seals under his control to revenge for his family. Now I get it why he was yapping about murdering people. I get the calls from former cops and soldiers who have been turned and now convince me to join them. No? I'm so close to finish all of this, especially since the village down the road is free from monsters. The soldiers even set up an anti-aircraft gun on the place where that creepy statue was. However, I have more statues behind the lighthouse, and it feels like they are powering up, because now there are green eyes floating in the air. The last call I get on the shift is from the village elder. He announced the beginning of the new world, as the Aurora has reached its full strength, which means their god Cthulhu is coming. Oh man, does he come for real? I can tell he is dimensionless, only his head can be seen, and it's the size of the island I am on. I am afraid to witness his full size. I can't sleep while enemies are nearby, which means my shift is taking longer than usual, which means overwork, which means double pay, if I make it alive out of this. I'll finally be able to afford therapy. All of a sudden, the darkness itself comes scratching the door. The end is near, it whispers. Yeah dude, I can tell. I guess no therapy will help after this. Alright, it's decided. I will spend my money on a bicycle with tentacles instead. Tenticycle. I bet it's gonna be a bestseller in the New World Order. The military found a way to weaken Cthulhu if I direct my light to one of its eyes. When it's distracted, they redirect their forces to surround it. That's where I come to a turning point. I have many choices to make and decide the destiny of this reality. The cultists need the Necronomicon, so Cthulhu recovers his full power. Then it will start a new world to all humanity, but they promise to leave me alone. The village elder wants to return Jackie to him, whereas Jackie and Misty step through the portal in the basement to research other realities, as Misty always dreamt about. I must hurry. The mutated villagers found a way to seal me with their statues, as they did with the old keeper. That's where I make my first choice. I go down the basement and step through the portal in the wall. I find myself in another dimension where the light from the flashlight burns my eyes and slowly drives me crazy. Behind the sealed door, I find that ominous Necronomicon, and my daughter before it. She believes in me and my ability to make a right choice. The book offers me to sacrifice the old keeper to it in exchange for anything I desire. Being able to see what the world is turning into. I wanna stay unharmed, and in exchange for the evil keeper, I ask the book to dispel the darkness surrounding the lighthouse. So the cultists will be able to enter inside and reclaim the Dark Book. At the end, the cultists got their forbidden knowledge but were driven out of the harbor by the military. The old world disappeared, as well as all mutated people, but it's only a matter of time until they return, bringing new horrors from the depths. I came to terms with grief over my family and headed to find a new purpose in this new reality. Later, the great god rose from the sea again to reach for the aurora. New flashes lit up the sky, and then the aurora was gone. The sun and all the familiar stars vanished as well. Humanity now had to discover a new, unfamiliar world. As the cultists promised, the new god brought them a new world. If only I knew, we would get covered in a constant obscurity, cold and devastating. Making this choice I knew there was another one. The burning pain pierced my mind again. I saw various opportunities. I had the second choice. I decided the old keeper wasn't worth it left alive. I sacrificed him to the book in exchange for the sea god was banished from this world. The book happily obliged. Little did I know it was acting on its own, separated from the old god's will. The darkness set free, and as promised, it enveloped the sea god. Eventually, Blackford was under control of the military, while the cultists fled. The aurora began to fade without Cthulhu. The fabric of the reality began to repair. The darkness, though, never disappeared, and the world became a different place now. Is it still safe to stay in darkness without losing your mind or getting dragged to another reality? Nobody knew for sure. But people kept hearing voices. Disappearances never ceased to exist. Severe paranoia was a regular occurrence. The third choice I had was even darker. I chose to sacrifice myself in exchange for things to get back to normal before this event. The book happily agrees. I said my last goodbye to my family before I was consumed by the darkness. It was set free to be stronger than the old one. One day, the aurora borealis covered the entire globe. Due to issues with navigation, the local government reactivated the old lighthouse and chose another keeper to work there. Whoops, I needed to word my wish better, because this choice only made things worse. The end was inevitable and I sacrificed my life for nothing. Lol. The fourth choice I had was to sacrifice whole Blackford and get back to my family in another dimension. In this case, I would go through the rift the old keeper once created, to join them. The Necronomicon got stronger than the old god, and the darkness would be set free anyway, starting new dark era. The old keeper's dream came true. The city finally perished. The fifth choice is the cruelest one. I could choose sacrifice myself to be forever trapped in an endless cycle of pain and suffering to let my family leave. They'd find themselves in their old house in a new world, succumbed by darkness. No sun, no stars, no loving husband and father, only daily struggle and fighting horrors to no end. It looks like the worst case scenario, to make your family and yourself suffer for no reason. The sixth choice could be made if I paid close attention to the outside world. Sooner or later, I would get a radio frequency to operate the submarine. It would require to open the Discord server of the people who built this lighthouse, search through cryptic messages to be able to decipher the launch sequence. After entering it successfully, I would have a chance to finish it all once and for all. The lighthouse would be crushed by a devastating shockwave. The force of the nuclear explosion broke the Necronomicon's barrier and pushed the book out of this reality. The cultists were almost wiped out by the explosion, as well as Blackford. Those who did not die immediately succumbed to a radiation sickness a few days later. I shared the same destiny, except the explosion wasn't enough to get rid of the sea god once and for all. A few days later, it rose from the sea and brought a new world onto humanity. The seventh choice is the least painful and time-consuming. The very first time when the old keeper reached out for me, he gave me a choice to quit my job, to save myself from the darkness. I didn't get it back then, but now I do. If I did as he told me, I would need to go to bed immediately after the call and run away the following morning. In that case, I would be lost in the fog and nobody would ever see me again. Without proper supervision, the lighthouse would quickly fall into disrepair. There was no light to guide sailors and people through the darkness. One by one, houses, streets and people disappeared. The darkness that had been waiting for so long at the doorstep has finally arrived, and there was no one to lock the door in front of it. Then there would be the final conclusion I was aware of. If I'd stayed in the darkness for far too long, I would have been losing my sanity minute by minute until eventually it would try to claim me. After blacking out, I'd find myself in another dimension, like a rift between the real life and afterlife. I'd be met by the boy who'd try to give me the second chance. He'd also reveal his alternative look, influenced by his brief presence in another dimension while he was dead. He gives me a choice to catch a ball just once and get back to my work. Sadly, I felt extra clumsy that night and the ball slipped out of my hands 3 times in a row. Suddenly, I felt too carried away with my dreams and lost touch with reality. The darkness entered my mind so deeply, I'd vanish as if I'd dissolved into the depths of the night. That's all the choices I was able to make. Feel free to write the outcome you got. If you ask me what option I'd stick to among these sorts of tentacled hentai torture, I'd pick the second option at all times. No mortal weapon can kill Cthulhu. When humanity's arsenals are empty, he'll reign supreme. But fighting against the book and its followers seems like an easier feat, though hardly winnable nonetheless. But let's face it, most of Lovecraftian and Lovecraft-inspired creations lead to nothing else but one of the nightmarish creatures becomes everybody's sugar daddy, while another of old gods leaves an incurable mark on the world, everything smells fishy and you can breathe underwater, whereas happiness is an extinct animal, or main character dies in agony, or the humanity is turned into ugly blobs. And honestly, I am into such dark and twisted endings. They never cease to keep me in dread. Static dread. So, thanks for watching, subscribe to my channel and see you in the next video. Have a nice time in a regular life, without tentacles and monsters.